To welcome up to the stage Harshal.Patil. He's the CEO and founder of BTB Venture Group, who will enlighten us on the subject, Asia's top marketing leader and most inspiring marketing guru of 2020. Harshal is helping other companies in scaling their top line sales and setting up sales enablement. So Harshal, please come up to the stage. There you go. It's your trick.
Thank you, Ima, and your energy is always contagious for all of us. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm again glad to be with you. So I really wanted to yell woo because it's a huge conference, and I want you guys to give a round of applause for yourself for making this effort. So I had a great pleasure of meeting you guys, and certainly exchange a lot of insights out there. And I also want to thank you, the organizers for pulling out a successful event out here. So my name is Harshal.Patil. I am the founder of BTB Venture Group, and we are on a mission of optimizing the customer acquisition cycle by 60%. So today I'll be talking about driving intelligent operations and intelligent ROI through revenue operations actually. And for certain reasons, revenue operations is a very important, and the reason is turnover is vanity, profit is a sanity, cash is a reality, and RevOps is a king. Okay, and that's the main elephant in the room that I want to address. And it's not about valuations. Revenue is not about valuations. It's about making a real revenue out of it. And I'm not a fan of valuation without revenue. So before that, a quick questions that we need to ask. What if we as a leader couldn't develop an expansive skill set to manage the revenue operations? What if we couldn't manage the silos between the sales, marketing, and customer success? What if we really couldn't measure the costs behind the granular aspects of sales and marketing? And today I would like to let you know that how can we do it, why we should do it, when we should do it, and overall objectives about it. In 2019 as well, I spoke in the same conference about the RevOps, but today I will add a little bit more spice into it because over the period of time, a lot of things have evolved. So when is the right time to build RevOps team inside your organization? Why it is essential, and what are some of the best practices? So that is also something is the main agenda of today's discussion. So before I begin this session, I would like to ask a very quick question. How many of you know about the RevOps as a term? I think surprisingly only one person out there. So I think this session will not bore other people for sure. And my second question is to you only. So have you implemented RevOps within your organization? Some of them. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I appreciate your reward. So according to a report by IDC, businesses lose almost 30% of their inefficiencies in revenue operations workflow. And to ride on this wave, businesses would need to get more efficient in revenue operations and go predictably to put themselves on the hyper growth trajectory. Organizations are beginning to look at the new way to manage the revenue, which is the RevOps, which revolves around holistically breaking down, all the organizational silos and manage the revenue across entire organization. And when I say silos, I'm sure you must have noticed, sales team is working different, they have different KPIs, marketing team works different, they have different KPIs. And on top of it, customer success, working as a totally a different entity altogether. RevOps is bringing in an alignment between these three departments and get them on one single platform and reduce the silo out there. And surprisingly, you will be surprised with this particular number. 36% of the companies who have been successful have already implemented matured RevOps processes within their organization. And according to some of the recent reports that have came out, the only reason behind companies not being able to scale up is they haven't implemented RevOps within their organization. So it also depends on large degree on the mentality of how much the leadership is involved in this overall process. So to quote Ref, no matter how brilliant your mind or strategy, if you are playing a solo game, you will always lose out to a team. So RevOps is, guys, much more than organizational design. It is way beyond, organizational design. It is not just the tree map, the roadmap that we usually carve out with the titles. And all bets are off, if revenue operation is seen purely as a organizing model out there. And there is a fundamental cultural shift that we really need to make while implementing RevOps within the organization. So I have one more question to you. So how many of you know any tool that connects holistically the sales, finance, and marketing and customer success on one particular platform? How many of you know? Just you can raise the hand. HubSpot is the one. Perfect. So my point over here is, suppose if we combine, selecting the optimal and appropriate operating model with a revenue operations mindset that buys into the operations resource. In that particular case, organizations have the potential for fundamental transformation to tackle some of the persistent challenges. Some of the challenges that companies have been seeing is tech stack planning, demand generation, lead generation within the overall go-to operations. And yes, it will be very easy to handle the scalability and avoid the perennial disconnect between the marketing, sales, and customer success. So when do you know that it is a right time to build a RevOps inside your organization? So if you start facing a few challenges that I'm just going to talk about, I think it's the right time to build a RevOps inside your organization. So the first challenge is, if your goals are not aligned between your revenue generating teams, then it's a high time for you in order to think about implementing RevOps as a culture. Second, if your predictive revenue target versus the actual revenue that you have earned varies every quarter, then in that particular case as well, you need to think about implementing a RevOps. And the third main challenge is, if there is a disconnect between the flow of information between different teams, leads to a wrong messaging and the execution, and it is delaying across the functions, then also you need to think about, implementing a RevOps. Now, this is a very important slide. I'll just get back to you on this. But before that, the organizations that would align and achieve, this RevOps into their overall practices, then they will see, transformation in 3 departments. So first is the marketing. If they implement a RevOps methodology in a right way, they will be able to see the high campaign ROI, improved conversion rates. They will have, they will dissolve the attribution arguments. They will have better marketing impact and influence with a very fewer budget pressures out there. In terms of sales, you will be able to see more robust and accurate planning. You will have higher performance visibility. Highly targeted sales coverage would be there, and there will be less reliance on the sales generated leads out there. And in terms of the customer success, as in the delivery or the content team for a lot of the marketers, you will see a very lower churn. You will see, exploited cross-sell and upsell potential. And then, of course, there will be higher customer adoption as well on top of it with the proactive renewal management. So in a nutshell, revenue engine is an organizational and cultural transformation with reference to my previous point, in which leaders must align on the strategy and integrate, operational sales plans out there. So on behalf of the leadership team, operation leaders become the change agents for this. Usually we consider sales team as a change agent, but in this particular case, we also need a little bit of operational, expertise in order to, implement this particular RevOps within the organization. And I would like to, split this discussion in 3 parts. So first is, we need to define what is the exact revenue engine. At the step 2, we need to establish and plan the revenue engine. And in step 3, we need to execute the revenue engine. So let me just, talk a little bit about the defining revenue engine. Okay, so I think the first step in driving revenue engine alignment is establishing the initiative scope. You likely to have many revenue terms floating around your organization. So I think it is, better to get clarity. Let's start, gaining agreement and get clarity regarding the differences among the different terms that are floating around the organization about the, revenue out there. At step 2, while executing the revenue engine, it's a combination of people, processes and systems that drives the conversions of the prospects to customer, and it also increases and maximizes the customer lifetime value. So revenue planning fuels all annual function plans, and it will enable and align in-year adjustments as well. So fiscal growth strategies are identified and prioritized during the first phase of the revenue planning process, and the year's initial revenue goals are primarily established and refined across the go-to-market segments, route-to-market segments, and of course, corporate strategy and goals. The third point is, executing these revenue operations. Revenue operations can be, implemented as a coalition of existing functional operation teams or a new function that unites all those teams together. So setting up direction is very important through aligned revenue planning backed by solid metrics will play a very pivotal role in the success of monitoring the revenue operations out there. And success in revenue operations under any organizational model requires a balance of organizational, functional, and regional needs as well. If particular functions feel their priorities are consistently being downgraded, then sustaining something like centralized revenue operations model will be difficult, and as well as retaining those highly skilled staff. Let me talk about why it is important. There are only two reasons why RevOps is important. The first one is the sustenance, and second one is the growth strategy. So I think if you can see on the screen, it's a leaky bucket challenge out there, that majority of us face. New customers are getting added, but there is a hole at the background. The customers are flowing around. So hence the scalability, achieving the scalability is pretty difficult. So businesses need to continuously streamline their base for retention and expansion from the existing customers, even as they continue to add new revenue at the top of the funnel. Because without this base, you will continue to have this risky, leaky bucket problem. So when they have to continuously plug holes by adding new customers to offset the churn loss, I'm sure you must have, seen this challenge, and you're adding new customers every day, and you're losing one out there. So businesses will be able to fix sustenance if they do three things right, and if they able to overcome the sustainable challenges in three different formats. So in alignment with RevOps, I think the first thing is, if the information silos is there between the different teams, then they will be able to fix sustenance. So at startups, individual departments are loosely defined at best, correct? With nascent processes, information flow across members and teams are free flowing. So as the business matures and as the functions get bigger, they also grow farther apart, correct? So we need to break the silos in order to ensure the sustenance is there. The second is, there is also a lot of systemic, dependencies between the tools. So for example, you might have seen the financial tools are different, the marketing CRM is different. For the operations, we are using a different help desk altogether. So I think, and all these tools, they are not systematically connected to each other. So the tools at a startup are markedly different from those at a business clocking even $1 million. So without the infrastructure for rapid flexibility, businesses get stuck in band-aids that eventually, nibble away the growth. So that is also second important point. And the third one is, if there is a workflow gaps between the how processes are set up currently in your marketing team. So multiple organizational departments scale at different rates and different time as well. So having multiple team bound together by systems and processes in the way of each function scaling independently to each other actually. Let me quickly talk about, also the growth strategies, which is the second benefit of RevOps. And if we able to fix this particular point, the scalability could be achieved. So while, plugging in the inefficiencies, it is also important to be able to switch terrains and tap into multiple revenue streams to, grow consistently. So, but the constraints, that stand in the way of scaling companies fall into mainly three buckets. So first is a process constraint. Second one is a model expansion, and third one is a market expansion. The process constraints could be, easily understood, which is inability to adapt the new workflows, regulations and compliance requirements which are there as the team matures from the spreadsheet to a point solutions out there with the enterprise grade ERPs. Then the model expansion, which is also one of the important part where, it is inability to, service your customers across multiple business models, correct? Like, product-led strategies for the SMBs and, complex sales motions for the enterprises. And the third one is very important one, which is into a scalability. is market expansion. I think Kelly from Harvard Business Review have given a brilliant framework which is used by a lot of the companies, and that framework is called as MARACA, M-A-R-A-C-A. Anyone knows about MARACA? I'll just tell you what is MARACA. MA is market availability. So analyzing your market availability is equally important before setting up the RevOps function. So which is the size of the opportunity in the market. RA, which is a real-time analytics on how the company is performing in the market. Okay, and the third one is CA, which is customer addressability, which is the fit of the company's offering in the market. So each metric in this MARACA framework objectively score and access each market opportunity at a very micro level. And this framework, guys, will help companies for the market expansion. And I think if we talk about even, MA, RA and CA, we will need entire day out there. Hence, I'll not get into a, in-depth of it. So what worked in the marketing world decade ago may not work for us today. So I think cold calling will not work, for example. And I think we really need to understand, the skills of our employees before implementing it and decide if we need to outsource, any marketing work out there. Let me elaborate a little bit and stay on this particular point for a bit. That what are few challenges of market expansion? Okay, so to help businesses succeed, we must figure out how to target the right audience, reach them with the right content, and convert them to a customer level. So it could be a time for overhaul if you are not getting new customers with your current campaign. So look at your campaign and think about how you are targeting your audience. Are you trying to target an audience that is just too large? Dial it back and target your local audience if it is required. Or is the campaign imagery not lining up with the demographic? That is also one of the challenge out there. So we need to try out the new test cases to see if we can get a better response from any of the campaign out there. And for this, training your marketing team is an ongoing effort. One of the challenges while working with our clients is, they always struggle between the sales and marketing. And I think this always, put pressure on marketing in order to, get the ROI out there. But I think constant training is equally required, which should be the fundamental of, scaling up the marketing team. And, in order to scale this, to a different countries, if engagement differs across the market, then we also need to consider why some countries recognize your brand name more quickly than the other ones. So I think if you plan to expand to a different country, then that demographic understanding is also equally required. So expanding your brand to another country isn't just offering it there. You also need to think about how to promote it, get to know your local audience as well, and be sure we are keeping up with the competition out there locally. So to help yourself, in a nutshell, we need to define the right audiences and consider taking actions to resolve the language barriers as well. So using content creators, to help with the promotion could also support, for your efforts, since the local dialect out there. And to some of the countries, it can be very expensive to market it, more than just your local community out there. But the key mantra over here is start small and go slow and see which campaigns are getting the better interaction. And then double down on those options. And by doing this, I think you should be able to see better ROI, which is a return on investment, and which will also help you to reduce your budget issues in some or other way. And guys, I think another serious marketing challenge that we have seen in the market expansion is, that people run into today is the problem of having multiple choices out there. Correct? Even you mentioned about HubSpot, there are multiple choices out there, and customers are really overwhelmed, when there are too many choices, and having too many options on the market can cause disruptions in sales and services rendered. So the same is true for marketing strategies. So you have many options to reach your customers, but trying to reach everyone through every marketing technique can be overwhelming. I think it is very important that we need to stick to only one or maximum two approaches that has worked well for you, and double down those approaches actually. And I think if you will see another big problem, in the marketing, into a market expansion specifically, is, we can also run into a problem of, diluting our messages too much. We dilute our messaging too much. So the last thing that you want to do is segment your campaign in a way that reaches a lot of people, but doesn't lead to a conversion. So your solution to this issue is be specific as you can when you create the campaign, and you need to report on campaign performance in regions with the large budgets. So ultimately, global marketers are purely judged on the performance for their campaigns, showing the ROI in value of what they do. So setting up the KPIs for the campaigns while doing a market expansion is also one of the important factor here. I think another challenge in the market expansion is when you expand to a new country. So the critical marketing challenge is striving for global campaign consistently, striving for global campaign consistency while achieving the local relevance is also one of the big challenge. So there are different school of thoughts on this, on how to achieve this, but there is a simple mantra on this. I think we need to act global and think local. Let's act global and think local, which will remain a central tenet for the global marketing directors out there. And whether you carry out the localization of your global campaign in-house or trust your partner or agency, I think it is very much important that you need to put much effort into implementing your campaign globally as you would in the creative development. So there are a lot of areas that we need to do. We need to continually analyze that from which industries we are getting the responses, from which company size we are getting the responses, which kind of content is working well, to which channel we are receiving the responses. I think those kind of multiple data points will always support you to build a very realistic campaign that will yield more results to you actually. So Ross is a great leader. I'll just talk about how to implement this particular framework. And Ross, has quoted quite, insightful observation. So anytime, you guys go to a restaurant, every grill, that you have seen has a bottle of oil sitting right next to it, correct? Why? Because anytime something goes on the grill guy will reach over to pick up the bottle and put some oil down for whatever he's going to cook, be it burger, chicken or whatever, doesn't matter. So oil is going on that grill top. Now, if you were a restaurant operator, you would never take that oil bottle and stick it in the cabinet down at the bottom of the stairs. So that every time your grill guy needed to do his job, he need to go down, flight the stairs and go and find something and then come upstairs. Again, he need to put it on the grill or go back and, do this process repeatedly out there. I think, over here, we have seen the similar kind of challenges with the employees as well as with the customers. I think in our existing systems, it is very difficult to pull out the information out there. It is very difficult to get the statistics right in a very, right manner. And this is a big problem, guys, and it's a design problem. It's a design problem. It's a design problem of the platform that we are using. So I think setting up a transparent, streamlined business practices is the first step towards resolving the bad process design and capturing the lost revenue out there. And this is equally applicable while designing the RevOps framework too. I think RevOps framework has, 4 different parameters as you can see it on the screen. So first we need to plan, and I have put down the bullets. So if we want to go to each bullet, it will take a lot of time. So the first, maybe you can take a photo. So the first one is a plan, second one is analyze, third one is validate, and the fourth one is innovate. In each section, there are different, segments that I have put together, and it has worked well for the really successful companies out there. So I think one more point that I wanted to, bring in over here is you need to be able to, switch terrains and tap into multiple revenue streams to be able to grow consistently. And this includes, catering to multiple market segments on a global scale. So from running pricing experiments to fixing up the bugs in the systems, the project that team works are finite actually and time bound. But the processes over here for the projects do not have a lifetime. So they continue and require adoption every new time that comes along. So hence you will have to sow the seeds and not the coffin boxes. You really need to, have numerous iterations to this particular process so that it will innovate time to time. But these are the fundamental, frameworks. Along with this framework, there are some of the key metrics that we always recommend to measure. Some of the key metrics are, your average deal value, your deal win rate, the sales cycle time. And by incorporating these KPIs and the key metrics into your RevOps function, you will get entire funnel accountability. You will get a super clarity. And I think being a marketer, it will be a very data-driven collaboration with strong decision-making between the revenue-generating teams. It will certainly lead to a very predictable business growth with higher win rates actually. Let me just quickly tell you one of the use case of how we have modernized the go-to-market operations with 60% lesser cost for, for global, US-based management consulting firm. I think the top line, like a Socratic life, demands examination, and the total revenues tells, a story of growth. Sometimes happy, sometimes less or so, but they do tell a story of how company has grown up. So while working with this global manufacturing firm, having the operations across 4 continents, we noticed a few challenges. The first one was there was no collaboration between the departments. Number of salespeople or the number of sales agents that they had were 112 out there. And all of them were doing the same repetitive process back to back. So we've closely worked with this, the CEO and the founders of this particular company. We have brought in a lot of the consolidation. We transformed the process. We re-engineered entire marketing processes that they had. And currently, if you see the statistics, right now they only have 12 salespeople out there in their team. We haven't cut down anything, but I think we modernized the approach. We have taken a very strong route in order to define the business activities based on their revenue targets. We identified a very strategic initiatives, and all this was managed on one particular analytical dashboard with 34 different data points. We continually analyze that who is responding well, what kind of leads have the high scores, which kind of sales rep is taking on what kind of leads. With that particular mechanism, by streamlining a lot of automation, we managed to optimize that particular cost. So at the end, I have only a few recommendations out there to sum up this particular discussion. The first important key recommendation is we need to define the revenue operation and their core values. I think a critical step is to drive the conversation within the operations team on what values are essential to success and how to embed these into a charter of your revenue operations. And I think it needs to get into the hearts and minds of the operations resources as well in order to really see the success of it. The second one is each part of the organization, from marketing, sales, customer success, finance, all of them need to come together on one particular platform and work as one team in order to break the silos out there. Third important point, which is a basic one, I think we need to get started. Even informally, we need to get started in order to at least experimenting with the RevOps framework in order to achieve the scalability. And the fourth one, which is again important one, give the billing and revenue management a good strategic weight out there. I think the billing and revenue management of the finance team got the least weight out there. I think they are the most important people. I think they need to connect with the salespeople in a very humanized way in order to take it to a next level. So I think that's it from my side, and I would like to sum it up with a beautiful quote by Philip Kotler. Being a marketer, it takes a day to learn and lifetime to master. So I think together we all of us will try to master this particular art, and let's not stop. I am available at harshal.patil at btbventure.com. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attention. Yes, questions if you have.
Hello. So what do you think is the minimum size of company, or let's say a sales team or marketing team, to actually go ahead and implement this kind of strategies, RevOps and everything else?
Can you repeat it?
What do you think should be the minimum size of a sales team or a marketing team in a company to actually go ahead and see the leaky funnels and everything else and come up with a RevOps and other
Correct.
strategies?
So in fact, surprisingly, there is one company, they only had 3 members. One is handling the finance, other one is handling the sales, and third one is handling the operations. Still they have the RevOps framework. We can start as small as we can, and it can, with that particular function, it could be also implemented to, let's say, be it your company's 1,000 people team. Thank you.
Yeah, just a small one. Okay, Harshal, we are the HubSpot Platinum agency in India. So my question is, RevOps actually revolves around the sales, the flywheel. but people still talk about the funnel. The funnel is wherein you have the customers coming on the top and just going down. But flywheel is something where you talk about customer retention. But still, the discussions that I've heard so far, no one has talked about the flywheel. Everyone is talking about the funnel. So unless you come out of that traditional school of thought, RevOps is something that cannot be implemented. So what are your thoughts? What do you think people should adopt and talk about the flywheel, wherein you talk about attract, engage, and delight your customer? And in the old school of thought, that is the funnel, you talk about attract, engage, and convert.
Correct.
So the difference is between the convert and delighting. And when you delight someone, it's like a rotational thing, that customer retention increases.
Correct.
So what?
Yeah, I think, this is a pretty interesting one. And I think funnel was way discovered back in 90s. And maybe I think being marketer, we need to adapt and change and learn these new methodologies out there in order to improve the marketing as a holistic process out there. RevOps is a pretty new one, and I think a very few people know about it. I think, but the overall flywheel, as you mentioned, I think it is going to play a very big role in order to scale the operations as well. I think over there, the full funnel accountability is equally required. It's not just about, getting a deal and close it. I mean, the life doesn't end there. I think, all the silos needs to come together and build that particular operational, flow out there.
Okay.
So I think maybe continuous learning is one of the, recommendation.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the amazing keynote. Quickly, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Rad Arikat, and I'm a social media and digital director at Acorn Strategy. I can fix this one. Regarding the RevOps, and you have mentioned earlier that there is a quite relevancy when it comes to diversifying the revenue streams. So what is the key takeaways that you can give to the audience, and of course myself, on how can we better integrate it within the plan, and or actually while we're building that roadmap for our businesses?
Correct. So I think, there are 18 different metrics are equally important that we need to continually measure. So I think due to time constraint, maybe what I can do is I can email you all the metrics in a very detailed manner. All those, each metric out there plays a very big role, and it will really open up the eyes, while scaling up the company. So I would love to send it to you over email and then to other people as well.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Harshal. What a great keynote, and thank you so much for your questions as well. Greatly appreciated. Up next, we have a